So hello and welcome to Stepstomaths, and today in statistics we're going to be again looking at the median. And today finding the median, we're going to be finding the median on a frequency table. So you've worked a little bit with frequency tables at this point and you've discovered what they mean. Okay, so this is a collection of data. Again, when we're finding the median, we need to know what information we have collected. We need to know what the information means. So the information we have collected, X is the data that we have collected, and X is the number of children in a household. And F, the frequency, is the number of households that have a certain number of children. So much of the time that we actually look at a frequency table, we say X is our data and F is the frequency. That's kind of meaningless. We want to say X is the number of children in a household. If you don't know what the data is, so you might actually end up saying that yes, this is the data. But in this case, we know that's the number of children in a household, and F is the frequency for that data. Again, F is the frequency for that data, doesn't tell us much. You need to understand that 7 is the number of households that have no children in them. 9 is the number of households that have 1 child in them. 5 is the number of households that have 2 children. So we know that there are 4 households that have 3 children. There are 2 households that have 5 children. So we need to know what we mean by the median. Okay, so there we go. One thing I just want to show you, a lot of people forget this. When we're looking at a frequency table, it's a collection of data that's put together quite small. So remember what we looked at the last day. We had 30 points of data. 1, 3, 5, 7, 0, 1, 2. This is all the data that we collected. There are 30 points of data. This is the same data. This is exactly the same data. This has 30 points of data. And a lot of the time people go, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points of data, which is absolute travesty. Terrible thing to say. There are 30 points of data here. Okay, X is our data, which is in this case is the number of children in a household. F is the frequency of that data, which is the number of households that have a certain number of children. One little thing I wanted to point out here is we can draw a picture called a histogram. If our data is discrete, remember what discrete means? It means it can fit into certain categories. The categories in this case are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Because the data is discrete, we can count how often it falls into that category, and we can see in our frequency table how often, how many households. Remember, frequency is how many households have this amount of children. It's important to keep that in mind for something that will come up in a minute. So again, how do we find the median? Step 1, put the data in order. Is already in order. So we don't have to do that. Straight to step 2. Pick the halfway point. What do I mean by the halfway point? I mean the halfway point of our 30 points of data. How do I know there are 30 points of data? There are 7 and 9 and 5 and 4 and 2 and 2 and 1. 7 and 9 and 5 and 4 and 2 and 2 and 1 equals 30 points of data. At least I hope it does. 16, 25, 30. Okay, that's good. 30 points of data. So now we know that the halfway point means that there's going to be 15 points below and 15 points above data points, or I would like to say 15 households. So let's find the 15 and a half household. Well, there's the first 7. The first 7 is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Then another 9, which makes 16. And we're already past the 15 point. So we know that the midpoint is here. Right in there somewhere. Okay. Here's our median. Median's in here. Okay, that tells us that 15 points are down here, 15 points are up here. On the histogram, you can see that half the area is down here and half the area of these shapes are above. Don't worry about that, that's something you'll look at later. Okay, but the median just means that half of the area on our histogram is below, half the area on a histogram is above. On a frequency table, it means that half of our data points are below this value and half of our data points are above this value. When I say below, of course, I mean at or below that value. And when I say above, I mean at or above. So to find the median from a frequency table, now that I've made all that talk, we've got discrete data, otherwise we couldn't have a frequency table. It's numerical data, so that we can find a median. You can only find a median if you have numerical data. You can only have a frequency table if you have discrete data. So we want to find the median on a frequency table. Talking too much again. Step 1, they're already in order. Step 2, pick the halfway point. What's the halfway point? We add all these up and we find that gives us 30. We find the halfway point is 15 below, 15 above, and we find our 15th and 16th point, and we find it's in here. Let's add a little bit of data to this. Actually, let's not. I'll give you a go. You try and figure that one out. Okay. If you have some difficulty figuring out where the halfway point is, you count the number of points of data. You get 30. Add 1 and divide by 2. Okay. Use your calculator if you have to, but just add 1 and divide by 2, and that'll tell you where your midpoint is. This is particularly useful if, for example, you had 27 points of data. You would add 1, divide by 2, that would give you 14. So your 14th point of data is the halfway in that case. Okay, I'll give you an obvious example. Imagine we had values 0, 1, 2. That was our data. Here's our frequency. 0 occurred once, 1 occurred once, 2 occurred once. We add these up. 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3. We want to find our midpoint. We say 3, we add 1, divide by 2, that gives us 2. Our midpoint is second point of data. Okay, and then we go, that's 1, that's our second point of data. Let's have a look at another example. X has values 1, 3, 7. We have a frequency of 8, 11, 10. How many data points do we have altogether? We have 8 plus 11 plus 10 equals 29 points of data. How do we find our halfway point? We add 1, divide by 2, 15. So it's our 15th point of data. Where is our 15th point of data? Well, the first 8 are in here, first 8 points. The next 11 points. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points, and that brings us up to 19 points of data. So the 15th must be in here. So our median is 3. This is all much easier than I'm making out, but I just want you to keep in mind generally, we want to be aware of what our data is. We want to be aware of what F means. It means the number of households that have that number of data. We want to be very, very aware that there are 30 points of data here. Frequency table, that frequency table is exactly the same as these points of data. It's a summary of these points of data. Do not forget that this is a summary. It's not, it's representative of the data. Okay, so you do that. Easy peasy. Count these up, add 1, divide by 2, and then go along here until you find which point you're meant to be in. And your median is a data value. Your median in this case is 1 child. 1 child per household is the median number of children per household. Okay, so there's data. Have a go at the questions. It's actually a lot easier than I'm making out here, but have a go of it and you'll get